Hi, and welcome to the Lewiston Tribune podcast. This is episode number 60. I'm Matt Bainey, managing editor of the Lewiston Tribune, and I'm joined today by Anthony Kuipers, a reporter for the Moscow Pullman Daily News. Hello, Anthony.
Hey, good morning.
Whenever Anthony's on, unfortunately, we're usually talking about Bryan Kohberger and the Moscow murders. And anyway, we had an interesting hearing this week in the case. Of course, if you're living under a rock, Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty in the summer to the murders and was sentenced to life in prison. So that's all the same. But there was a hearing this week for him, Anthony. What was the hearing about?
Yeah, the Lake County Prosecutor's Office is arguing that Kohberger needs to pay some more money in restitution, specifically to cover funeral expenses. A couple families have purchased urns, and so the prosecution feels that Kohberger should have to pay for that. Kohberger's attorneys are arguing, he's in prison, so there's questions about whether he is even able to pay restitution at this point. And so they had a hearing about that on yesterday, Wednesday morning, and the Ada County District Judge is going to come up with his order shortly, I would assume.
Yes, he said he'd take it under advisement, and he'll make a ruling. Do you have any guess, just based on past rulings, how long would we expect before he has some sort of ruling?
I probably not this week, but I would imagine next week. I can't imagine this would take too long for him to decide.
It's interesting watching those hearings. He sort of thoroughly questions both sides, tries to poke holes in both sides' arguments. It did seem to me watching it that he was poking more holes in the defenses into Kohberger's attorney's arguments, it seemed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, as the prosecutor Bill Thompson brought up, being in prison and not having steady income, that doesn't give you an excuse not to pay restitution, at least most of the time. And so the judge was just questioning what is what the defense asking for. Does the law allow them to ask for less restitution or ask for him to not have to pay certain restitution just because he's in prison? So he was just questioning that.
Yeah. So of course that was the purpose of the hearing, to look into that matter. But there was sort of some new information that came out during it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Kohberger apparently has been receiving money. I believe some of that has come from his family, but some of it also has come from third parties. We didn't get many specifics, but I guess members of the public have sent money to Kohberger. And the judge at one point said that figure has reached 5 figures.
There's a history in the 3 years he was incarcerated of him receiving 5 figures put on his books. Doesn't that give the court some history to suggest that such contributions from whatever source may continue into the future?
I believe the term Bill Thompson used was significant monies have gone to Kohberger's account. So yeah, that's new information. It came up in a court document a little while back, but this is the first time they've spoken about it, and so that was I'm sure surprising to a lot of people.
And I believe did Bill Thompson say that, or maybe you mentioned it, that it was in the documents, part of this argument, but that part was sealed, so we can't actually see the amount or where it came from.
Yeah, the list of donations is under seal at this point. So yeah, we don't know much about who sent what to Kohberger.
Okay. It during the hearing, I believe the Kohberger attorney mentioned that it is in Idaho code that you can't profit off of a crime you've committed. So you can't sell a book with your story. You can't sell your rights for a movie. Um, but it sort of seemed to be suggested that maybe there were some gray areas there. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, my understanding is that the Idaho code says that any money that a criminal gets from those things can be intercepted by the Idaho Treasurer's Office, and they can take that money and distribute it to the victims or pay restitution, that sort of thing. But Judge Stephen Hippler brought up the question of, can Kohberger's family members earn money from like a book deal or a movie deal, and can they send that money to Kohberger as a way to like work around that law? So that's an interesting question. I don't know if Idaho has a history of something like that happening, but yeah, it's that was an interesting conversation. It's not something I've thought about before.
Well, and it does seem like, regardless of whether or not a family member could send him the money, the profits from that, it does seem like, as far as I could tell, that anybody involved in the case could write a book and profit off of it, other than Bryan Kohberger. His family, the victims' families, that's all fair game, I guess, right?
Yeah, and there's already been books and documentaries, but I think those have come from third parties, reporters. Um, so yeah, down the road, we'll see if any of them decide to go that route and maybe sell their story. I don't know. We'll see.
And then it's sort of, anyway, it's been I think it was reported maybe a couple weeks ago, but there is a dramatized movie that's being worked on by the Lifetime Network about the case, the Moscow murders, and there's actors listed on the Internet Movie Database that show who's playing the victims, who's playing Bryan Kohberger. I know you probably don't know too much about what the Lifetime Network is doing here, Anthony, but do you have any insight into that?
No, according to IMDb, like you said, there's already a cast that's been set for, play the victims as well as the surviving roommates too. And then of course there's an actor who's been cast to play Kohberger. I don't know how far along this is, if it'll even come to fruition, um, but apparently that's happening. I can't say I'm surprised. We live in a world where people are fascinated by true crime stories. So I imagine that's gonna, be something that will come out in the future. If not this project, then another project like it. So yeah.
Yeah, Anthony, I was speaking with one of our colleagues about this, and it's true. Yeah, true crime is such a thing, and there are things that happen in a case like this that I think a lot of us say that's not right. You shouldn't profit off of things that way. But I mean, even our operation, when we started this podcast a little bit more than a year ago, our biggest podcasts have been discussions about Bryan Kohberger, and that has increased our subscribers. We've written many stories about it, and I think we've done our very best to try to not to cover this in a responsible way. and just write about what we think our readers are interested in here in our coverage area. But I don't know. Do you ever? I know I kind of. I think you and I probably think about this a lot when we're covering this. Are we doing this in a responsible way, or is anything we're doing exploitative? Does that kind of come into your calculations?
Yeah, absolutely. This happened in our backyard, so we can't ignore it. We need to report on it. Our readers care about it, but I think I don't. I see other media organizations kind of, in my mind, sensationalizing things, and I try to avoid that. Just knowing that there's like a whole world of people who have been really hurt by this crime. The families, the university, the community, so on and so forth. You try to be objective as possible. Reporting on what Kohberger's attorneys are saying about things, but also reporting on what the victims' families and the prosecution is saying as well. And but yeah, it definitely puts you in an awkward spot as a reporter. But you have to cover it because it was a significant event in this community's history.
And Anthony, I'm not trying to flatter you here too much, but there have been lots of journalists that have done a good job of covering this case. But I don't think anybody's been as responsible as you have. You've always been really good about not speculating, sticking to the facts, not sensationalizing it. That's a big reason why when the sentencing happened, you were the pool reporter selected for that, because I think you'd proven that you were responsible and you stick to what's actually happening, not a lot of speculation. So anyway, I think you've done and of course you've been on this now for almost 3 years. So there's it's been a big part of your professional life for 3 years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been on my mind a lot. And I know you're about to ask me, what I think about this upcoming anniversary. And I think what's notable about it is this is the first anniversary that is post-conviction. The case is no longer going, except for this restitution issue. But Kohberger is in prison now. He's been sentenced, and I think this is the first anniversary where there's that little bit of closure, at least on the legal side of things. And so I think that's an opportunity for people to start to move forward from this. I'm sure people are going to attend the beautiful memorial on the U of I campus that's been built to commemorate the victims. But I think it'll have a slightly different mood this time around because of the conviction of Bryan Kohberger.
And authorities are still releasing some of the documents from the investigation. There were some just earlier this week. But it seems unlikely that there will be any giant revelations in any of the documents that come out now. Right? I can't think of anything that, the thing that we never got really was a clear motive in the case. And it seems unlikely we're ever going to have a crystal clear reason why this happened.
Yeah, I think that's the one big question remaining. A lot of records are still redacted just to protect people's privacy, so there's some information we may not ever get. But yeah, the motive part of this, that's already been addressed. The police, judge, attorneys, never seem to be able to come up with an answer for that. So, whether Kohberger ever wants to confess that is up to him. But either way, he's gonna, be in prison. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't see any big revelations down the road, but who knows?
And important to remember, and I think this was true. I think it was Judge Hippler that said this, that, or maybe it was Bill Thompson, but a lot of people wanted him to be compelled to Kohberger to say what his motivation was. But they made the point that you can't really trust whatever he's going to say. I don't think there probably isn't anything he could say that would be completely, I don't want to say satisfying, but something that you could say, okay, well, I understand. No, there's no understanding it. I think is the point.
Yeah, that was a big point, and I think the other point that Judge Hippler made was the other thing that would do is simply just extend his 15 minutes of fame and just give him more attention. And so I think that was his reasoning for just moving on from asking about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Anthony, I promise one of these days we'll have you on to talk about something that isn't this case. It's always pleasant to visit with you here. And thank you for watching this episode of the Lewiston Tribune podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. You can find the podcast on YouTube at lmtribune.com and on all the podcast apps. We have a new episode every week. So we'll be back next week with another new one. Thanks a lot. Bye.